How's it going, YouTube? This is Skull, and today is the 4th anniversary since the Nintendo Switch first launched. It was released on March 3rd, 2017, and this video goes live on March 3rd, 2021, exactly 4 years later. And I thought that I would take the opportunity to do a candid video talking about my thoughts on the Switch over the last 4 years, its past, its present, and its future. And I want for you guys to tell me in the comments what you think about the Nintendo Switch turning 4. So, I have my iPad here with my notes on it, so please bear with me. There will be very minimal editing in this video, so just bear with me. So, first of all, the number one thing that comes to mind when I think about the Switch is the Nintendo Switch has games. It's become sort of a meme nowadays, and definitely a jab at Nintendo just not announcing new stuff until right before it comes out. But, you know, the Switch does indeed have a lot of games. It got way more support than the Wii U ever got. It's gotten more support for a Nintendo console than any console I can think of that they've made since maybe the Super Nintendo. It's pretty insane. You could make the argument that the Wii had more support, but the Wii only had like 10% of the games on it were actually worth trying out. 90% were shovelware. Whereas with the Switch, it's the other way around. 90% of the games are worth trying out, and only 10% are shovelware. Odds are you could go to a store and pick up random Switch game off the shelf, and it's probably a good game, or at least worth playing for a little while. So, I think that it's great that the Switch has so many games. As a collector, it's insane because there's over 750 physical games released for the Switch so far in North America, and that's just retail games. That doesn't count limited print games, it doesn't count games from other areas of the world. Easily right now, the Switch has over 1,000 physical games, individual titles. So, yeah, in terms of its library, it's going to pass the Wii. It's already got the largest Nintendo home console library outside of the Wii. The DS still has more games than it does, but not by much. And it's past the Game Boy. So, in terms of just games, the Switch has a lot of games. And as someone who was very disappointed with the Wii U's performance, just 4 years in, seeing all these games on the Switch, I'm thrilled to see it all. Something that the Switch has got that the Wii U never really did ever get is huge third-party support. From the beginning, we saw Ubisoft supporting the Switch so well. They made a ton of great ports of their games for the Switch, day and date with releases on other platforms. Trials Rising comes to mind, but, you know, they also were the ones who made Mario and Rabbids. That was not a Nintendo published game, but that was not a Nintendo developed game. Ubisoft are the ones who developed Mario and Rabbids. Ubisoft has been really good at supporting the Switch, but we've also seen other huge third-party companies supporting the Switch lately. We've seen Bethesda supporting the Switch with really good ports of Skyrim and Doom, and even Doom Eternal coming up. And lately, we've seen EA supporting the Switch as well, releasing a lot of their backloggery on the Switch and releasing a few games now day and date on the Switch with other systems. It's really nice to see these third parties coming out and finally supporting a Nintendo system, essentially for the first time since the GameCube. And, yeah, it's really great to see. And, you know, obviously the stuff on the Switch is going to be not as good as on other systems, especially now that the PS5 and Xbox Series X exist, and they'll always be worse than on PC. But you know what? Developers have really gone out of their way to give the Switch some really nice ports. Even companies like CD Projekt Red, which put The Witcher 3 on the Switch and managed to fit the entire game on a single cartridge, no download required. And I think that that's great that these companies are not only supporting the Switch, but they're supporting the Switch pretty hardcore. Yeah, and of course, that's the reason that they are supporting the Switch so much is partly because the Switch has sold so many units. Right now, I believe it's sold over 80 million units. it might very well pass 100 million by the end of 2021, and this is only its 4th year of existence. That's just insane to think about. To put that in context, for home consoles, only the Wii has sold more from Nintendo, and this the Switch is set to pass the Wii by the time its life is over. If it does really good, it could sell like in the 110 to 115 million unit range, which is pretty high up there. That's more than the Game Boy systems, and pretty much for Nintendo only behind the DS. And overall, it's only behind the DS and the PS2. The Switch, by the end of its life, could very well become the 3rd best-selling console in history. It's 4 years old now, but it shows no signs of slowing down. And that's just amazing to me, because when the Switch first launched, everyone was just so worried about how it would perform in the long term. I'm still worried about its actual integrity of the system itself in the long term, because it's a tablet with drifty Joy-Cons, but in terms of support from Nintendo and from third parties, it is going strong. Now's probably the best time to buy a Switch, as long as it's been around, because it has such a huge library already, and yeah, I just think that it's really awesome to see this system the way it is. Now, I do have some problems with the Switch, and we could talk about hardware issues, the lack of a Switch Pro, or the battery life, or the Joy-Con drift, but I'm just beating a dead horse if I talk about all that stuff. I want to talk about the games that have been released on it from Nintendo. The Switch's first year was very front-loaded. Nintendo released a new game for the Switch almost every single month. And ever since then, that has slowed down to a trickle. Now, 2020, last year, turned out to be a pretty okay year. We had Animal Crossing. We had a new Paper Mario game, which didn't suck. We, of course, had Mario 3D All-Stars, and we had Age of Calamity at the end of the year. You know, it turned out to be a pretty okay year. But the problem was, for a lot of the year, we didn't know what was coming next, because Nintendo seemed to have this trend where when one game would release, only then would they announce the next game that was coming out 2 or 3 months in the future. And then only after that game released would they announce the next game, and so on. When 2020 started, we only knew of 2 games coming out in the entire year. One was Animal Crossing, and the other was Xenoblade, and we didn't even have a release date for Xenoblade. And then after Xenoblade came out, we had an empty slate. We didn't know what the next game would be. It would end up being, I think, Pikmin 3 or Paper Mario, one of those. But the point is, Nintendo has gotten to the point now where instead of giving us a lot of games to look forward to throughout the year, they just are not telling us anything. Mario 3D All-Stars, they didn't announce that game until 2 weeks before it came out. So, yeah, that is definitely an issue that I have with Nintendo. They started out so strong. Their first year of the Switch release is one of the best years they've ever had in terms of a strong library. The first year gave us Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 2, ARMS, a brand new IP, Xenoblade 2, Super Mario Odyssey. It just gave us so much stuff. And it's just been slowing down ever since then. And one of my big problems with them is that a lot of the games that they do end up releasing are ports of Wii U games, or now even older. It's just really gotten annoying as someone who already owns those games and has already played those games to look at the list of first-party Nintendo games that they've released on the Switch and realizing that half of those are not brand new. Half of those are just ports of older games. It's annoying. I get it. It's easy to port a game. It's easy to sell it for $60, and there's a lot of people who have never played those games that will be happy to play it for the first time. I get it. I totally get it. But it's still annoying that Nintendo isn't making that many brand new games. You know what I mean? Last year, their only brand new games were basically Animal Crossing, Paper Mario, and Age of Calamity. That's pretty small compared to the 6 new games they came out with in 2017. So it's frustrating, especially since this year in 21 we've already had Mario 3D World, and upcoming will be Skyward Sword, and I think that's it. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but those are ports. We don't have any news about actual brand new first-party games. Well, I guess Pokemon Diamond, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, but that's not really Nintendo. That's not even Game Freak, but that's Pokemon. So, like, I think I made my point by now that we've had so many ports, and I'm just at this point expecting more ports. I'm expecting at this point more ports than brand new games, which, hey, if the Switch turns into nothing but a port machine, I know a ton of people will be happy. And it's already given us plenty of great brand new games that we didn't have before, but it's just a little annoying, and I hope that I'm pretty sure I've made that pretty clear by now, what I feel about that. And not to mention that there's been a lot of games that were announced really early on in the Switch's life, but haven't released yet. Before the Switch was even released, Shin Megami Tensei 5 was announced, and we just finally got a release date for that. And let's see, and of course, infamously, Metroid Prime 4 was announced at E3 2017. That was 4 years ago now, and it's just been struggling to get developed ever since. They had to scrap the game and start from scratch once or twice. We also have Bayonetta 3, which was announced in 2018. We have the Breath of the Wild sequel that was announced in 2019. There's just been so many games that have been announced, and then that's the last we've heard about it, and that's pretty annoying. At least we know they're coming, right? Sure. But hey, in the meantime, enjoy this port of... I don't know. I don't know. Enjoy this port of GoldenEye from the N64. Which is not going to happen, by the way. That's not to say that I hate the ports. The ports are really well done, and a lot of them do include some new thing that you can only experience on the Switch anyway, like the new Funky mode in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I don't hate the ports, it's just annoying that that's what Nintendo's focusing on more than their own new games. But anyway, moving on from that topic, I'm sure that there will be plenty of people talking about that in the comments. The next thing that I want to talk about is the Switch Pro, or the Super Switch, or whatever people are going to call it. I don't think it's ever going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. I know that people have been begging for a beefed up Switch essentially since it came out, and I know that there's been rumors and speculation and reports from anonymous people whose uncle works in Nintendo that the Switch Pro is coming. It's just around the corner. I don't know why it hasn't been announced yet, but guys, this thing has sold 80 million units with 0 hardware revisions. If it never gets a hardware revision, it'll still sell 100 million. It's a guarantee. So, I mean, I got 3 right here. And if they make special edition, more special edition Switches, I'm sure I'll be picking 1 or 2 more. But I know people want to play Switch games in 4K, or they want to play Breath of the Wild in 60 FPS, but you're the minority. I'm sorry. I know that some of you are gasping and mashing that dislike button right now, but the vast majority of people who own the Switch play it in handheld mode. They know they're getting a lesser experience than if they played it on a different console, or especially PC, and they're okay with that. Because they're willing to sacrifice resolution and frame rate if it means being able to take your games on the go. This is a machine that you can pick up and take with you anywhere. If you're in the back of a car on a road trip, or if you're riding in a train on your way to work, or if you throw it in your backpack to play on the plane on a trip to a convention. You know, taking your stuff with you, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And if you want to bump up a Switch to be able to output to 4K on a television, that's going to drive the price up, and that's really only for power users who are going to play it exclusively on a TV. And guess what? Most people don't play the Switch on a TV, they play it in handheld mode. I'm sorry. I'm trying to give my reasoning for why I don't think a Switch Pro is ever going to happen. And you know what? Maybe I shouldn't say never. Maybe for its 5-year anniversary, they'll make a new Switch Pro. I think it's more likely that they would just make a Switch 2 at this point. But yeah, all the people who want an updated Switch with better graphics, maybe an OLED screen, 4K, 60, all that stuff. You guys don't know how much that costs. That costs a lot to manufacture, and it costs a lot to sell to the consumer. I don't know of too many people who would be interested in buying a $400 Switch or a $500 Switch over a $300 Switch, or especially a $200 Switch. The Switch Lite has sold really well because it's $200. That's the price of a new 3DS XL, and it's a Switch. I just don't see a Switch Pro happening. At the very least, not in the next year. And I know people keep looking at Pokemon Legends Arceus, saying the game is obviously meant to play on a Switch Pro. They had to downgrade it. It looks terrible on the main Switch. And to which I say, you guys are entitled and you need to just drop it. In closing, I want to say that the Switch is only about halfway through its lifetime. The PS4 and Xbox One lasted 7 years between when they launched and their successors launched. The 3DS lasted a total of 9 years between when the first game came out and the final game came out. The Wii got brand new games for it for a total of almost 15 years. So it's hard to say exactly how long the Switch is going to last, because the Wii U lasted 5. Between when it first launched and the Switch first launched, 5 years. And there were only maybe a dozen Wii U games that came out after that. The Switch, I think it's safe, is going to be here for a while. Even after they stop making retail games for it, there's going to be limited print games made for these things. In terms of its relevancy, in terms of when I think its successor will come out, I think that we're still closer to the front than to the end of its life. So I don't think we'll see a true Switch successor until maybe 2025 or 6 is my guess. 25 is my official guess. In which case, yeah, this is the smack dab middle of its lifetime. And, you know, it's been a great first half in that case. It's hard to believe that it's been out for 4 years. It feels like it just launched. I still get giddy with my Switch every time I boot it up, just realizing how innovative and how unique the technology is. And I love it. I love all of these. I got this very Switch the day it came out, the night it came out, midnight 4 years ago. And it's been with me ever since, and I've treated it well, and it still runs all the time. It's still my main Switch. Whenever you see me make Switch videos on my channel, this is the Switch I use, and I have been using for 4 years. And I intend to keep using it for 4 years and beyond. So, yeah, the Switch has had an incredible first half of its life, an incredible first 4 years, and I look forward to seeing what happens to it in the next 4 years and beyond. Switch Pro or not, successor or not, I love my Switch, and I'm so glad that it's been doing so well. So that'll do it for this video. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Switch's first 4 years in the comments below, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye-bye!